Fires in the inland Northwest move fast, sometimes without any warning at all. We can all prepare our homes and families for the threat. What does the threat look like for your family this fire season? And what have we learned from some of the worst fires to strike the inland Northwest?
Looks like a war zone. I mean, there's trees down everywhere.
We know we learned a lot of things from Firestorm, but it is one of those days that you never forget.
It was October of 1991. Heavy spring rains allowed vegetation to grow and quickly become fuel for fires as the dry summer dragged on.
I think people are astonished, and maybe what people saw from Firestorm and other major fires is how rapidly fire moves.
City of Spokane retired Fire Chief Bobby Williams met with us to talk about the day 92 fires created what's known as Firestorm.
And that morning was unusually windy and really dusty, a lot of dust in the air. And I think the winds that day got up in excess of 60 miles an hour.
911, do you have an emergency?
All these back roads up here have trees down. There's a power light by my neighbors upstairs that's starting to burn.
There was no formal mechanism in place to get resources to come and help us.
Williams says firefighters were quickly overwhelmed as more calls for help came in.
We started calling each other for help. And we found out, hey, they can't give us any help because they've got big fires.
Let's go to work. Go.
We realized the gravity of the situation, and in essence, the whole city of Spokane was surrounded by fire.
Firestorm changed the emergency response to wildfires in Washington, thanks to the State Mobilization Act.
And now the Mobilization Act is used regularly throughout the state of Washington.
17 years later, Spokane Valley saw the destruction of nearly a dozen homes and 1,000 acres in the Valley View fire.
A fire that could have burned from where it started all the way to the Idaho border when we first saw it.
Retired Spokane Valley Fire Chief Mike Thompson met with us off of South Dishman-Micah Road, where he says you could see the glow of flames the night Valley View caused hundreds of evacuations.
Some people on Park Lane came down to leave, and it's only one way in, one way out. They came down and ran into a fire that was coming up the hill. One of our inspectors had rounded them up and put them in an area that used to be an old baseball field and had them hunker down overnight or over as the fire blew over them, but saved, I think, about 14 people.
Lives saved in 2008, in part because fire agencies from around the state were quick to respond, and programs like FireWise USA encourage homeowners to create defensible space.
But I think, unfortunately, some of it gets lost because we'll have a fire like this and it brings it to the forefront. Everybody's thinking about it. So they do a lot of work the next year, and then it kind of starts to fade away.
911, do you have an emergency?
There's a fire north of Chatteroy.
Do you think we're safer today than we were?
I think we're more prepared than we were. While there was so much bad and we lost lives in Firestorm, a lot of good came out of it to help the fire service, to help the state, to help the communities prepare for, unfortunately, what will be the next event, because as much as we work to try to minimize it, it's going to happen.
Kirsten O'Connor, 4 News Now. So much to learn from retired fire chiefs. Both of them want to thank them for those interviews. And Chris, we're bringing you in now because 2008 wasn't that long ago. A lot of people talk about Valley View still today, and it was something they saw and something they experienced.
Well, and the weather conditions leading up to that event were something we could see coming days in advance. And so if you do pay attention to those red flag warnings, those fire weather watches, there was very low relative humidity that day. Extremely gusty winds. We don't know where the fires are going to start, but we know when the conditions are prime for a situation like that. So all that advanced work you can do to be fire-wise in advance, then you're prepared when we send out those watches and warnings.
And that's exactly what the firefighters were talking about, was working with the meteorologists in Spokane, hearing those warnings ahead of time, knowing what they were up against.
Yeah, we report on it every year. You want to have that 100 feet of defensible space around your home. You want to prune up those trees,
yes,
get those low branches off the ground, clean up your pine needles that are around your home, water your lawn, mow your lawn, all important things to prevent a disaster.
It's so important. And
so
it's
important.
Different. I think a lot of people were under the misconception that because we had a lot of rain this spring that, oh, we'll be in a better situation. But meteorologist Matt Gray has done some of his brainstorms about what the conditions will look like. I know, Chris, you've talked about it a lot. It's really impossible to predict, and we all just need to stay prepared.
Well, those fine fuels dry out very quickly. They're not in danger tonight, but it will not take long before we'll be right back in it.
And we thank you so much for your experience, Chris. Our coverage on wildfire season, of course, doesn't end here. Download the KXLY Plus app, where I'm going to continue to show you some of the things that you can pack right now in an emergency kit so you and your family are ready in case you need to evacuate. I did this in my own emergency kit today, and it only took 20 minutes.